Insights. Today, joined by Derek. Derek's on time, ready to rock. Appreciate it. So yeah, Derek and I were catching up about a bunch of things in the industry and internet and so forth a couple weeks ago. And I was like, hey, you like talking to people. You want to come talk to my nerdy people? And Derek said yes. And so we've arrived at this spot. We're going to have a conversation, yeah, probably about 50 minutes-ish. And then let y'all get, oh, thanks, Paul. Let y'all get to your next class on time. By way of reminder, we're kind of remixing our format a little bit. Last time we tried to fit the talk and the breakout conversations like in the same session, and it just felt too rushed, kind of degrading both of them. So the way we're going to do it this time, I was just meeting with your SLC reps and the Student Leadership Committee, and we are going to put together an outline for your Friday retro that includes some follow-up discussion questions. So the idea is during this time, we can listen, ask questions, process, and then hear from Derek. And then between here and Friday, you can like process, simmer a little bit. And then Friday, have a little bit of conversation with your peers to try and make meaning of what you learned here. So that's the sitch. Derek, how you doing today?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure I've got the right microphones pointed in the right places.
Yeah.
Cool.
What's your nervousness level about speaking to like 40 strangers?
Well, I have a varying level. I can go to like play on a big stage in a band and like not break a sweat. But then once in a while when I show up to a meetup, I like freak out and have a total like internal panic attack and turn bright red. So it just depends on the situation. I'd say I'm about 50-50 right now.
Okay.
But it will probably just like dissipate after a couple minutes.
Maybe with the band, it's partly because like the lights are so bright. You can't see the
I don't know what it is with that sort of stuff. You really don't have a choice. You have to kind of like, if you're going to sing karaoke or something, you just have to own it. Otherwise, you're only gonna do it. You either own it or don't, or get out of there. I guess
Yeah.
There's no choice.
It's not a moment for bashfulness.
No.
Nobody's like, oh, that guy's so shy, rocking out there
go
on
all
stage.
in.
Like, yeah. All right. So first, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
How you've been in and around tech and tech spaces for a long time now. I put it down as ballpark 20 years. I think that's about right. But kind of some different angles, different niches than the typical like software devs that I think we interact with and from that usually graduate from Turing and so forth. So was hoping you could kind of give us like a overview of how you got started in like art and that led you to art school.
Yeah.
And then into tech and the things you're doing now.
Yeah, I think I can do that. I think that I got to go to some pretty interesting schools as a kid. My mom just kind of like chose the like alternative option whenever offered. And I grew up in San Diego. And my first kind of schools were sort of interesting, like kind of like maybe ex-Montessori, ex-Waldorf sort of teachers trying to do their own thing. So I think the way that they taught was often through physicality and maybe art and things like that. For example, if you were going to learn math, you would have a choice between like counting with beans or this other thing where you have tile math where you fill in the tiles, and there's like 20 different styles. So if one wasn't working out for you, you could choose kind of a different angle and get comfortable with that. And then when you're up to a certain level, kind of jump around. So I don't know. I guess that made a big impression on me like really early on with how that worked. But so that they were just kind of, I don't know, I like drawing and like skateboarding and like hiding in bushes and running around town and doing those sorts of suburban sort of things.
Is hiding a bush in bushes a thing? I think I missed that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Stuff like hiding in trees, just doing goofy stuff. And then I don't know, I always chose art classes if that was an option. And yeah, I don't know. Fast forward, there was an art school, like an art high school thing option that I chose, and then I went to college because I don't know, it seemed like that's the thing that you're supposed to do. Like you go to art high school, and I went to art college. So um, that was interesting because you're almost like a little too educated, and you're already kind of a jerk young kid anyway. So you're like, I already know art. I've been doing it for years. Whereas like many other people might have been just starting in college. So I don't know. I think part of that was led me to other things like playing music or later in college that we had an option to kind of do a more I don't a kind of code centric class where some of the teachers were from survival research laboratories, and so they were making these crazy like big crazy art pieces in the 80s. I don't know if you ever heard it, and later and still today, but like almost like these gigantic, way before battle bots, like battle bots with like lots of political angst and sometimes like serious weaponry. And so they had kind of a couple of those guys were teaching at the school, and I don't remember what it was called, but it was some kind of interdisciplinary sort of art thing. So we learned to use Max MSP and a little bit of programming. But even then, I don't know, for some reason, programming, even though I was, I'm 43, like when other kids were probably learning to just make HTML websites at lunchtime in the library, like, I don't know, I didn't catch on to that. I had my Mortal Kombat cheat codes and stuff. I'd go on the internet a little bit, but I was not like an AOL person. I was out, whatever, smoking cigarettes at coffee shops or something bad like that. But like, so I don't know what happened, but the idea that you could program something just seemed completely that's for somebody else. It was like a huge gap, like just a blank black hole. Like I just never even considered that could be possible for me. And it wasn't that I wasn't confident. I was like, I'm pretty industrious. Like I'll figure stuff out. But for some reason, yeah, that was just completely, you know, like that. And the same thing with graphic design, really. My first year of college, like I went there for illustration, I thought, and three of my roommates were graphic designers. And even then, I don't know. I just thought graphic design, that's for commercial people. Artists don't do that. Or I can't do it. It's hard. Like I don't know what to do with the typography. I don't know how to choose the colors. Like it just seemed like a complete mystery. So I don't know how I was such a pretentious teen when and still having such confidence, but also being like totally aware that I didn't know this huge, massive amount of stuff. So I don't know, to try to tie that back together. I did get a little bit of programming sort of by accident, like osmosis sort of came in through some the keyboard stuff, like some synthesizers and stuff like that, because each knob is sort of between 0 and 127, and you can kind of save these patches, and you're sort of accidentally learning a little bit about data structures and a little bit about things, but still very, very, very hazy. I also was making like MySpace stuff, like changing colors and doing stuff. I didn't even know what CSS was. Like I don't think I could have explained what a div was or anything like that, but I was somehow taking MySpace pages and like redesigning them somehow just by trial and error. But yeah, it never occurred to me to like, Flash was around. Like I had a like pretty high paying like little side job my first year of college doing Flash websites. But yeah, I don't know. I learned a little action script, I guess. I don't know. Careful, I'll
I
get lost.
no, I appreciate it because I mean, I think it's I don't know if annoying is the right word, but when people are kind of like, well, I started writing BASIC when I was 6,
Yeah.
and I just felt like this was my future, It's like, that's cool, no offense. And also, like, especially here, that's not what the rest of folks were doing. You
Yeah.
were talking about AOL. It was making me think about a long time ago, like 8 years ago or so. Steve Case, who started AOL, was in Denver doing an event, and he came and toured Turing. And so I'm walking him around, and as we're walking, I was really debating with myself if I would tell him that my first programming was writing scripts to like steal accounts and do credit card fraud on AOL. And I decided he was not going to find that funny,
Yeah.
not as funny as I did. So I held back for once, for once.
Yeah.
So you do college, and picking up some side work, kind of dipping a toe in some tech related spaces, and then what?
I mean, that was more like my first year of college. I would go out. It was sort of probably the end of the dot-com boom, really. I mean, they would just have me play Counter-Strike with them because they like didn't have an extra person. And I don't know. Eventually, I just like didn't go in anymore because I wasn't actually doing any work. But like, so it was, I don't know. It was sort of I got to see a little tail end of like San Francisco early 2000, which was interesting. But after that, then it was just made paintings, had friendships, went through my growing up phases of I don't know, dealing with insecurity and like trying to find my place in the world. After college is probably when I first started thinking, that was fun. I wouldn't change it for the world. I loved my college and my friends that I've made and everything. But I kept thinking like I've been to my teachers' houses. They're not like making bank, They're not like we some of the departments got all this tech and stuff. And then I got an easel with like a bunch of paint that somebody left on it, like oil paint that would ruin my acrylic painting. Like, I don't know. I just started thinking, couldn't we make something like this? Or like, is there some co-op type of idea that we still have access to all the tools? But like really what I cared about most with my teachers is that they were just hanging out with me and they were telling stories. Like one of my most important painting teachers really just said, hey, sit down for 6 hours. If you can't do it, you're probably not going to be a painter. And then for the rest of it, he'd just tell me stories and kind of, we'd talk about like different directions you could take on paintings and stuff. But sometimes you just need support and somebody to be around. They don't have to be the best programmer in the world or the best painter. In fact, those people are probably the worst teachers in my experience. So, I mean, it's hard to run into somebody who's some kind of savant who wants to hang out with you and can then somehow turn that back into language that, and just for a small group of people. So I don't know. I started thinking, I tried to get all my friends involved. I was like, let's make our own art college. It'll be awesome. And they were like, you're crazy. So I don't know. Then I just kind of worked in restaurants, like partied too much. I had played in music and stuff. So it was good, but I didn't have a lot of direction. I didn't feel like the art school really prepared you. Like, it was fun and I learned a lot about myself and about having time just to be introspective. And I think that is something that like a 4-year college will do despite the curriculum, depending on your situation. It's just like time can't really replace that. Um, and just being given the ridiculous ability to sit around and hang out and think about art and like planning a party at your house or whatever, you know, that's I'm lucky to have got to do it. But I also look back and think, why didn't any of the teachers say, okay, so whatever are you going to be a fine artist? Is that what you're going to do? Are you going to have gallery shows? Are you going to go around and meet gallerists? Like, do you have any sort of plan? Or, hey, maybe you're a great illustrator, but a terrible business person. Maybe you should meet up with somebody else, maybe form like a team. Or they didn't teach you really anything about business. We did have like an interdisciplinary critique class, but that was also something that I just kind of stuck with me. Like, why couldn't we have a little bit of both there? Support while you're learning, but also tying that into something real. Like some people are maybe like a small percentage of people are going to be whatever, the fine artist in the gallery, but even that's a lot different. Just like in the music industry, there aren't gallerists just hanging around ready to like spend all their time to make you into a career. There's people who are like waiting around for Justin Bieber's to get famous and then capitalize on them after they've done all the work to get famous. So yeah, it was an interesting situation. I started thinking about that, and then I was kind of just restauranting and not, that was fun too. I learned a lot about kind of like people and design and stuff like that. But at some point, then my girlfriend at the time wanted to move to LA to be closer to her gallerist, and that felt like an adult move. Like I'm gonna move away from my like safety net of kind of college friends and try to go do something more, I don't know, official, like start a career or something. But that was 2008 or like 2009. And I was like begging to just let me bar back for you for free. and you can see if you like it. Like,
Because of
I
the
couldn't get a
housing
job.
crisis, economic meltdown.
It
Yeah.
was rough. And I'd worked at like a pretty cool restaurant in Oakland. I thought I was just gonna waltz into LA and be like, "Hey, what's up? I'm here. Give me my job." So that was pretty dark. And but I did join a cool band at the time because my girlfriend was supportive and was saying, at least do something if you're kind of stuck right now. So that was really great. But it was during being in that band, they were always saying like, "Why are you doing this? Why don't you be a coder? You kind of worked on our website. To them, I was like an amazing programmer who, at the time, I was actually just hacking together some Dreamweaver sites, and just starting to kind of see, oh, this sucks. I have to copy and paste the whole thing for every page because the navigation's different, or noticing those sorts of things. This little like, what if this was a component that could be reused, or something? And so yeah, I just I didn't know anything about programming. To maybe your average person, I was more creatively figuring some stuff out, but I still didn't know anything about programming. So it wasn't until like 2011-ish when I was just like, okay, this is stupid. My other girlfriend had been working in kind of like Nike catalogs, and I said, I don't think this job of graphic design for Nike catalogs is going to be going on very long. Um, you really should learn a little web design, web development. And so I learned just enough to show her and kind of reverse engineer this website I'd seen with this mysterious div that was floating around. And I did that, and then I just never stopped because it was really fun. It kind of became like my video game or whatever that I would play. So I was just working at the pizza place so I could go to my band practice. And then I said, I can't work at this pizza place forever. I'm going to focus full time on web development.
I love it. And along the way, like this kind of interest in the education around development, tech, product, etc., was kind of like always there. So like how does it play out now, 12 years later? Like what's your business look like today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I started by making websites for people, friends of friends, which sort of ended up like a little freelancing, right? But that sort of ends up being a little bit of education in itself because you're sort of having to be like a business consultant. And then they would pass me person to person, and then some person would need help and I'd have to go explain it to them how to do it, and then I was explaining to Jenny how to do it at the same time. And uh, I was probably annoyingly explaining things to people in many ways in my life, like here's how you do a kickflip, no, do it like this. But yeah, I don't know when the education part came in. It was probably just because I was on Stack Overflow. I was on, all these various forums, and people would have a question, and then I would want to kind of figure it out and see how I would explain it, or it's a question that I also had and was interested in just knowing what to do, or like when I got my first official coding job, I don't know if it was 2012 or 13, it was at this little like studio that was basically in an apartment building and on like the little like a big apartment in an apartment building they had kind of used as an office. And I had learned pretty good like how to do HTML and CSS. Like I was really into it because basically right when I started was like the moment they discovered the media query. So I made one website fully with uh absolute positioning. And then they're like media query arrived, and I was like, cool, I will now be like an expert at responsive web layout design. So I got really into that, and that was easy to get a job at the time because nobody could do that. And they were like, mobile responsive, whoa, he can do it. So I got a job there, but then I was still just like picking up like jQuery. I was still just had memorized. I still hadn't actually learned anything about the like concept of programming. Like I knew that I had to write dollar sign thingy, click on click, and that if I didn't do it the right way, it would break. But I mean, it never occurred to me that that dollar sign was like an object, or that that second thing was even a CSS selector, or that what a method was, or what. I mean, you can. It's funny. I like to go back and show people. my early Stack Overflow questions where I'm like, but where does the callback come from? Like, what is it? Like, and they're just like, it's a function. And I'm like, but from where? And just like kind of reverse engineering
Yeah.
like a for loop or for each kind of loop or the higher order functions and kind of like I did everything the dumbest, hardest way. I mean, luckily I had fun. I have like the mentality to like push through, but I did really make such a hard time on myself. I didn't have anyone who was programming at the time. I had one friend who kind of would like try to learn JavaScript with me for a couple days and or Python or something, but he wasn't. Yeah, we weren't the right people to be learning together. But so I guess I just whenever I can try to clarify something like that, it's just I don't know. It's like an addiction. Like, I just have to like do it because I don't know if I'm trying to clarify it for myself, like my old self, or what. Yeah, but I don't know. That's sort of the teaching parts. But
Yeah.
like I guess more officially, like when I got kind of moving up the jobs, I mean, I guess I really went back to learn kind of like programming like way later, like almost when I was like a senior programmer. I had been using Angular and Ember and all these things, but I was like learning those abstractions. Like I think it was really more like 2015 or something that I was like, okay, go back to the basics. What would you do if you had to teach somebody from nothing JavaScript or whatever programming languages? That's when I actually went back to learn PHP, which I never really knew, but I had kind of used in WordPress projects for clients. And then it was like, oh, this was here the whole time. Like, it's just key value pairs. Like, not that it's simple, but if you would have had somebody at the time, like for me, like something like Turing would have probably been amazingly perfect to actually put it all together. Like, oh, this is what a whole application looks like. This is what a team looks like. These are the options. Like, I mean, I probably could have got a much higher paying kind of job and all
Yeah.
those sorts of
Fancy
things.
job. It
Well,
is.
just because I was making it really hard on myself. Like sometimes I'd take like a $600 job that would take me like 3 weeks of 60 hours a week. But I did a lot of learning, but terrible business person when
Yeah.
it came to that stuff.
It's
So
interesting, like I think when you start programming or when you start developing your understanding of programming, it's very syntax oriented, right? Of like, I type this and I type this and I get out this outcome. And some folks like move past that quickly. Some folks, that's enough to get the job done. And so you might kind of stay at that level of understanding um, for 5 years or 10 years or maybe a whole
yeah,
career. And I think it's interesting. I think of it almost like in dimensional space, like the syntax is like very 2D and like you're laying out these letters and shifted characters over your number, and then it gets you to a thing. And then as you develop your expertise, it's almost like you start to look at it like off angle a little bit and see it as this three-dimensional, like conceptual connections of systems and objects and factories and databases and whatever, just all these pieces
yeah,
that are like they start to almost like I'm missing some syllables there. We start to think of them as like little creatures, and it's like,
yeah,
oh, this thing, it almost has like intent. It's over here doing some job while this thing over here is doing another job. And then it's funny, I think, in a lot of ways, if you kind of keep going down that path, you end up caring about the syntax so little,
yeah,
where it's like, oh, what's the thing you type? Like, I don't actually care. And then now, as we tie into like the AI era, I think syntax is one thing that AI clearly does very, very well.
yeah,
And so if you can rough out some ideas of what you want to happen and how you're constructing these objects and so forth, and then give it to an AI and are like, hey, tidy this up, it'll probably give you exactly perfect code at that point.
yeah.
So I think it's, yeah, kind of like
I
it's
I
interesting
remember having a
progression.
feeling like that once. I wonder if I have this book here. But there was a time when I had taken like a senior product designer role at kind of a I don't know, startup arm of a corporation type of company. Like a company, my job was to like sell the magic pill. But during that time, I had been thinking about the code, but I had been thinking about the kind of team and the design and the story. And like, I had that kind of moment too, where I was trying to draw it out with somebody and you couldn't 2D. And you had to kind of shift and then realize that the points were in this other kind of direction. And there was a book, actually, it's called The Elements of User Experience. I
Mm,
can't see it offhand,
yeah.
but there's actually a drawing of that in 3D, and it was written by the guy who Jesse James Garrett, and
Yep.
he's like the guy who coined Ajax, fetch basically, right? Asynchronous JavaScript and XML before JSON was king. But he actually wrote that book in like 2010. I was like, or earlier, I think it was like 2001 or something. And I was like, oh, he's explained like the entire design process in this way that I've been trying to get to, like, well, that I've been getting to, that I've been like coming to naturally, but hard one.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting in there, right? The good ideas, they don't move as fast as people make it out to be, right? It's not like, oh, I think sometimes I've had people ask over the years, like, how do you even teach somebody to program in a year? Because when they finish, it's the industry's totally different than when they started, And it's like, you're, that's like a real cute story and is like so radically outside of reality.
Yeah.
The good practices like a skilled, even let's say senior developer today is doing the same basic things, applying the same principles that they did 10 years ago and 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It doesn't move that fast, So it's, yeah, like uh writing about these like patterns of user experience and so forth from 2005, it's like, oh, most applications could still use these ideas today. They still suck.
Yeah. We're still trying to solve the same
Yeah.
problem.
And particularly, one of the things I'm really interested in is like over the next 5, 10 years, I think that our output software is always hard to quantify, like to put metrics on, right? But I think that the total software that is built in the world, if you were to measure by like lines of code or some similar kind of metric, is probably now growing at like somewhere between like a linear scale and an exponential scale, like some kind of really sharp curve, right? Where 2 years from now, 5 years from now, I think there's just like 8 times as much software as there is now.
Yeah.
And then the idea that AI is somehow going to like write it all, debug it all, maintain it all, it just seems like pretty naive. But sorry, I don't want to go too far down the AI track
Well,
just
I
yet.
mean, we should talk about it a little. I would say like because I was working at this agency called Pixel in LA and they had some interns, so I ended up kind of teaching them some stuff. And I had gone there after I was the product designer. So I'd already kind of shifted my mindset a little and I tried to go back to being kind of like straight up, you tell me, pass me the directions on the web developer, which maybe wasn't the right move for me. So they probably wasted some time with me there. But through that process, I said like I don't want to work at a waterfall agency again. And so that's when I started kind of doing the sort of the teaching thing, which I didn't know exactly what that was going to be. Probably like when you guys started. Let's see what happens. Let's get some people together, some cohorts, and so that's changed and morphed over the years. And so, but what I get to do by having these groups of kind of students or people that or by testing people's curriculums and helping like consult on those sorts of things, is I get to kind of live the dream of me just trying crazy stuff and seeing what happens. So on this latest job that I have, of a partner and I started an agency. This is our first big job, so we don't even have a name for the agency or anything. But it's a pretty big job. It's kind of like a TurboTax size type of project. So this is the first time, like Brian and Seth and I and my partner Matthew have all been kind of like just throwing AI at everything to see what happens. Not complete like vibing out, like because we none of us want to deal with a code base that's a mess. But it's been really interesting because I did think during this project that we hit some thresholds that were like, all right, this is a total game changer. But I don't know. Like it's still really good at certain things. Like it's good at like I learned a lot about databases and I learned a lot and I was able to kind of talk a lot about here's my ideas, here's some structures, here's some stuff. So as a sounding board using Claude or ChatGPT or I hesitate to even name them because they're all going to be different by the time anyone sees this. But some of the big ones, the regular ones you talk to, I think there's a lot of value in them, and especially when they become more like a RAG that, like when they get put into documentation and like, here's how to do a really great React site, here's how to do a really great Laravel site, and they put those in there. Like I think as an encyclopedia, it's really powerful. I still think I'd rather talk to a human, like if at all possible. Like if I could talk to a really great programmer, I think that would be better than any AI. Like I think so far we're always comparing AI to a bad programmer or somebody who's never programmed. Of course, it's amazing. But would you rather have the best programmer in that domain hang out with you and build your product with you? Or would you rather do it by yourself by talking to a typing machine? So there's that. But then also, I tried some of the ones where it actually has access to your entire code base. So it is able to say, I was able to say, hey, go check out the posts CRUD. We set up so they can make blogs and all this stuff and this and that and the other. I need an FAQ one too. And it did go create 14 files. I didn't write any code except for like my thing. And it did make that. No, it wasn't Cursor. It was Claude code and it was in the terminal. But similar in the fact that it has a giant context. But I would say that overall still, and I don't want to be an AI hater, and I don't think that either way that it's like dooming us at all. I think it's just a tool that will make it so we can focus on the things we care about more. But I will say that overall, like even though it could do those things, I wanted to go in the code less than usual. I didn't know where things were as well. I lost my context. My people I'm working with probably lost some of their context. I didn't really want to get in there and review their code as much as before. And I think that like the human context of us all knowing and seeing each other's trials and things we've screwed up and being able to kind of map that code base in our own brain context is pretty valuable. And so it's hard for me to really it's interesting. I don't know. I had moments where like this is going to change everything. I'll be able to build all my projects way faster. And then I also had the opposite of like, I wasted 30 hours I can never get back that like could be in my soul and like burnt into my like brain connections. So
It
I don't know.
reminds me, you remind me of some conversations I've had over the years with senior developers, like true senior staff level people, 10 plus years experience, and talking about ramping up at a new job. And I think one of the things I've always heard about junior developers is like, oh, we can't afford to baby them. It's going to take 6 months or a year before they're productive. We don't have the time and resources for that. That's like, I get it. And then in talking with senior developers, I remember talking with an old friend and like somebody who's been across a bunch of projects, bunch of like did a lot of consulting, and so jumping into different spots. And I was like, how long does it take you to feel like you really know what's going on in a code base? Like when you jump into an established project. And I thought he was gonna say like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And he was like, oh, easy 6 months. I was
Yeah.
like, 6 months? You're like a genius. And it takes you 6 months to like understand where the things are, how things are put together. And he's like, yeah. And I think that's one of the parts that's easy to miss, exactly as you're saying here, where AI can maintain a lot of context, AI can generate a lot of code. When you don't have the context, when you haven't put those 30 hours in your soul, it's not so easy to just jump in and be like, oh, this is broken because of this. Like we made a bad assumption here, like I don't know,
Yeah.
like, and we've never, I don't think most software developers are great at reading code. I know I'm not. Like often, like if I'm reading a book, if I'm reading one of these like typical programming books, I'm definitely like reading the words And then when it has a page of code, I'm like, there's code here. Okay, continue on to the words. Like I just skip over it. It doesn't mean anything to me, you know?
Uh,
Um, and now if we're all in the position of like generating a lot of code, generating a lot of technical debt, brownfield code, whatever you want to look at it,
yeah.
now it's like the ability to read and understand code starts to become like really even more important, especially if you didn't build it yourself.
It's and I'd say a couple more things about it, which is that even outside of the code itself, the reason why some of those tools were helpful was because I spent 20 hours in Figma going, what? How does this company work? Because it's like I had to learn all about real estate stuff that I don't know about, and then I have to go back and forth. So by the time I said, "Hey, Claude, you see how there's these concerns in this area of the enums? Can you go add descriptions to all of them?" Like that was helpful. Thanks. I'm still gonna have to go back in and like rewrite the descriptions, but like it did a bunch of stuff that was menial, and I appreciate it. So I think it's important to explore it a little, but I also don't think anything can replace like your core ability to understand the underlying concepts and patterns, like of how the web works and stuff like that, because it's hardly that useful for me, and I'm keeping and I can like I can write it off saying I'm doing it for the students, I'm doing it for my consulting, I'm doing it, but it's dangerous, and I know what I'm doing pretty good. So for somebody who's new, I can tell when somebody I'm working with has given over a little too much to the chat GPT. And some of the people I'm working with this time, I think we're all very even keel on that. But we all committed like some random like bullshit test, like list of tests that didn't do anything at some point
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
this project. I'm like, you really need to check to see if that SVG is an SVG, or and I did one that I let slip through that was just like nonsense. Like, so it's a slippery slope, and often it's like the best decision is simpler anyway. Like, you don't just, yeah, I
It
don't
is
know. That
funny,
doesn't make sense, but
I used to teach middle school and high school, and you would be reading a paper or something, and it's like just a, 2 page front and back kind of paper. And it's like ninth grade paragraph, PhD paragraph, ninth grade paragraph. And you're like, tell me about this section right here. And they'd be like, oh yeah, I was doing research on the internet. And I was like, oh really? Let me grab a phrase from it. Let me do the same research. And they're like, no, 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 right? It's like straight from Wikipedia. Um,
yeah,
when you are not an expert in what you're doing, you're really not as slick as one as you might want
yeah,
to think. I think typically developers aren't really trying to like pull one over on people, maybe in the interview process or whatnot, but when you're actually building the software, it's like you're trying to just move forward. And sometimes you move forward with a paragraph that's like good, but it just doesn't fit. It's just not the right, it's
yeah,
not the style, it's not appropriate for like this set of constraints or what have you.
yeah. I think that it's there's just a spectrum across the whole thing, right? You could obsess about the perfect pattern conceptually and waste a bunch of time. You could put in a bunch of junk in there that's going to cause you time later. Like try to find something in the middle, because it's not all about, especially when you're learning, like, like a lot of you all are probably, you'll always be learning, but like what you take away permanently in your experience in your brain, and being able to say, oh, that time that guy did this thing, and then I did this thing, and they clashed, and this happened. That's the value you take on forever. If your
Mhm.
goal is to like make the boss happy, or like get that PR in just for the sake of putting in the code, yes, you might be making the company you're working for move ahead a little. But I think to some extent you have to think about like what you're giving up too. And like that in the long run, they're probably also going to be better off if you take the time to do that code review, or you take that time to like ask for help. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally, when I looking to work with somebody, like I'll take the person who will jump on a call with me and talk through the code with me more than I would take somebody who's better at programming with me, because I just think that the personality part of it, the like group problem solving, is like really important. And I know some people are shy and stuff, but like, you know, that stuff's important.
It's funny also. there's a cynical argument here, I think, that says like, Derek, you're not trustworthy in this space because uh, we already have music. We can just get music on Spotify, but you keep playing it. You got the keyboard right there. Like,
Yeah.
bozo, like, why are you wasting your time? We already have art. We've been making art for like thousands and thousands of years. We don't need any more art. And it's like, yeah, but what do we give up? Like, what do we give up if we're just like taking it, if we're not involved
I mean,
in
there's
the
probably
process,
some possibility of like really wildly changing like ideas about society, but I don't know. My friends who are illustrators are probably going to keep drawing their drawings, whether or not you can ask ChatGPT for a Ghibli painting or whatever. And what do you want to be doing with your life? I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have to buy into those things we don't like. You can go be a baker. You can be the baker form of a web developer. Like we have more ability now to build like serious large scale projects with just a couple people than ever before. So I'm not saying that that's just go start your own business because that's also a very hard thing. And I think that there's a huge benefit to going and working at a company and learning from the people and all those things for a couple of years. But I'm just saying like it's these people that are so dark about it. I mean, no one ever gives you another option. What are we all going to do? Just walk into the ocean and drown ourselves? Like, I mean, we're going to have to be a society and live together. And I think that knowing the ideas behind programming, the ideas behind language, and collecting information like we already do in our brains with key value pairs, and being able to understand how cities work and how money works, all these things are kind of universal. So even if you're not specifically going to end up using them for the web, I mean, I think you kind of can't go wrong. I mean, I don't know. What are the other options? Like, what
Yeah,
are
I
these
mean, I think
other
that's a
careers that
really,
everybody's gonna go do?
I was just a place where both you and I perhaps unwisely choose to spend some of our time is the Reddit world.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it's interesting on one the like beauty and curse of Reddit is that it's like egalitarian, right? Like everyone has one upvote.
Yeah.
And you can be like, I have a PhD in this topic. I've been in this field for 30 years, da 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 da. And other people are like, yeah, but I heard, I listen to a podcast that disagree, and it's like equal, everything's equal in there.
Yeah.
In those spaces over the last 2 years, particularly, there's been a lot of doom and gloom. And I think I come back to exactly this question that you're leading to here is like, what's the better option? If you're going to, if in this moment we say, okay, software developer jobs, there were times in the past where it was easier to get them, there were more of them. Fact, check. And if you show up today and somebody, like I have a lot of friends who work in and around the federal government,
Hmm.
and many of them are like facing instability or have lost their roles and so forth. And they're like, what should I do now? It's like, I don't know. It's not like, oh, this software field is uniquely fucked up. And like, if you just go do
Hmm.
this other thing, straight to the top, everything's great. It's like, where's the spots that are great in a rough time? It's clearly good to be rich. If you can take the job of being rich person, you should take that job because they stay rich, they stay in that job.
Could
Other
still
than
not be
that,
right for you.
yeah,
Even that could be wrong for you depending on your personality and stuff.
true. And it is interesting to me to look at like, okay, I have friends who are like in law and have 10, 20 years experience, and it's like they're freaking out about their jobs. Folks in management
Yeah.
consulting, they're freaking out about their jobs. It's like all these whatever professional fields, it's like, oh, you can definitely drive deliveries. People need that. And maybe nursing if you
Yeah.
really have a high tolerance for doing very difficult, thankless work.
Most of the people I see, the most desperate people to get into tech are the nurses, from what I can see.
Yeah.
And the driving will work for a while, but I mean, that's not necessarily the funnest thing. But some people, I bet it is pretty fun. I mean, there's no job that's like a bad job. It's the bad job for you. You know what I mean? There's plenty of
Mhm.
people who like take a lot of pride in driving that bus or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be for me. You know, I
Yeah.
I would be trying to
Yeah.
multitask with multiple hands or something. It wouldn't be. I wouldn't be a good driver.
No, that's
You
definitely
know.
illegal. All right. So in this kind of broad umbrella, I feel like you're always a proponent of people considering a lot of different niches, little areas of the field or angles to like come at how do we apply some of these principles of design, of iteration, of thinking about customers, whether the customer is a human being or they're another machine or whatever. Like if if I'm in the spot where I'm developing these programming skills and I want to kind of cast a wide net, like I want to try and find what's my thing gonna be.
Hmm.
How do I do that? Like, where
Yeah.
do I look?
It's definitely tricky because you can kind of only learn and take in so much at a time. So how do you do that? It's something I'm always trying to figure out because dealing with just the logic of learning your first control flows and things like that, how does that work? I mean, I try to get people to just literally draw out their own control flows. You know, if I go to the kitchen, it smells bad. I'll look in the trash can to see if there's a bunch of food in there. If there is, I take out the trash. Otherwise, I don't. Or these sorts of things. I try to connect everything you do in a technical way back to something real, and then say, what is something I would be interested in working on that might use this? As simple as it might be, oh, whether that's like playing video games or whether that's, I don't know, a new government, a different way that voting works, whatever it is, you can always kind of like put it to use. Like I make these kind of dumb projects like this monster adoption agency type of thing in the hopes that nobody will make that. But they'll take the same ideas that we have this list of things that each of those things has their own amount of properties. Some things are Boolean values, some things are number values, some, these all these basic kind of programming things can be used to connect to something you like. So if you like synthesizers, well, why not make an object that shows where all the knobs are as far as 1 to 20 velocity, envelope action, blah blah blah. Or maybe you're really into whatever it is. I mean, fishing lures, like even that is it might be you might think that's not connected to tech, but who's going to hire you for their Shopify store if you're in love with fishing and you made all your projects about fishing, if you want to go work at Big Bass or whatever, some like fishing store. So there's lots of ways. It doesn't have to be like when I say like try stuff out, people are immediately like, I don't have time for side projects. Like, how dare you to expect me to become this good at everything? And I'm like, I'm just saying like lean into something. Like, when you pick a t-shirt in the morning, you pick some color t-shirt. It's not like that wasn't a lot more work to pick out a color. Just lean into something that you're interested in. You can make jokes about things. You can, and I think smaller things too, like little things. Like a lot of times, if you go all in on some type of React tutorial, you come out the other end with like, okay, I set up this thing, and then what? You think somebody's gonna go log in and read your GitHub? Like probably not. But if you were like, I hate like signing in. So I drew out the worst sign in process. And then I drew out this one that might be a little better. And then I drew out this one a little better. You write an article about it or something. Like it doesn't have to be always about doing the final glue that would be in an enterprise level product necessarily. Although for some people, that's where you need to be putting your energy too. So whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I'm a UI design coder niche or whatever it might be, but if you like micro interactions and when what are you doing when you're procrastinating? Like, what is that? What do you go back to CSS because you like seeing the boxes appear? I mean, that's okay. Like, there are companies who secretly, when they're hiring a developer, they're all thinking, man, he's really good at that backend stuff. I love doing the like API so I can stay out of it. But if somebody would just know HTML, CSS, like that's who we'd hire. And so I don't think trying to be good at full stack everything is necessarily the way to go. I think over niching is not the way to go. And I think expecting that you're going to have enough time to somehow do 3 times as much side projects is unreasonable too. So try to just take everything you're doing and just lean it in a certain direction. You can pretty much take the same project and make it like I do a project with the students where we do like a theme challenge. Like, what if your theme is, I don't know, transportation, like trains. So one person might do like a high-end, high-speed future train website. It's the same HTML. One person might do like old-timey, whatever, like old McDonald farm train. And especially with AI, it's so fun. Like, have you ever seen that cat with the cat with the lasers? It's like a site
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
cat battle gear. Like, you can make an e-commerce
Okay.
site.
Now, I thought I was a yes, but then I'm a no when you said cat battle gear.
It's an e-commerce site, but they'd obviously just ran through some early mid journey of like cats with like missiles on their back and laser sights and stuff, but like you can make it fun. Underneath it, it's still just a list of crap, and you're looping over the list of crap, and you're offering some like interactions, and you can make it personalized, I think. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And I think it's
Something
interesting in
like that.
there, like when, what I think employers are most scared of with regards to junior developers, entry level people, is that they're gonna have to spoon feed everything, right? That every to do is just gonna be a nonstop series of questions where it's like, I might
Hmm.
as well have just done it. And I think 10 years ago, people used to talk about like, oh, we want to hire developers with passion. And it was like, it never quite sat right with me in that, like, I don't think you really do want a developer who's like, the thing I love is like Ruby syntax. And I'm like deep diving the shit out of Ruby syntax because they're going to tend to write code that no one else wants to love. It's
Yeah,
like all
yeah.
super meta programs and all kinds of, I shouldn't say nonsense, but like just making things complicated because that's what they're into. Right. And, but I think when people talked then about passion, it's kind of like out of favor now to say passion, um, which I'm good with. I never liked that term. But what I think people were really looking for, and they're looking for now, is like, do you have a willingness to solve problems? And
Definitely,
it's
yeah.
not just like, could you solve a problem? But this demonstration of like, I had this problem, even if the problem was I wanted to figure out what the hell, like, how do I organize an e-commerce store around battle cats? And it's like, I went after it and I did it. And I
Yeah.
generated some content, I did some pricing, I built a shopping cart, da 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 da. Would you like to buy some cat lasers? And they're like, no, I would not, right? And it doesn't have to be like, oh, we are the cat laser business and you built the thing just like we do, so therefore
No,
you
no,
love
no.
us and da 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 da. It's just about like demonstrating I can I can get interested in something and see it through, right?
Yeah,
And like
I'd say
see
it's
it
it's
in.
to a level of not always polish, because it depends what you're doing, but to a level of some sort of complete thoughtness. Like, if your thing is like, hey, this is all about an interaction, has nothing to do with HTML and CSS, it's fine if it doesn't look whatever, like whatever people think looks cool on Dribble. But if it doesn't work and half the buttons don't work, like that, I see people doing that a lot. Like, it's not about being like impassioned and heartbroken fighting through it, or but it's about like, do you understand what this job is? Like, we're gonna pay you $100,000 or whatever because we expect you to make us like $1 million, and everything you do, I can't go in and say like, didn't you understand this corner is like, all of our corners are 8 pixels. Well, I don't know, that's not my job, or like, whatever it is. Like, you can come to the table. Like, one of the best people to work with is one who gets a ticket or whatever, goes off and says, okay, I researched this, I researched this, here's the pros and cons of this, here's the pros and cons of this, which one do you want to go with? And then you're like, okay, well, so they fully understand the goal. Not like necessarily, like, I have a problem with solving problems in a way. I know it's just semantics, but it's like, do you understand what we're trying to get to?
Yeah,
Because
purpose.
if at
Yeah.
the end of the day, this thing doesn't let you do what it's supposed to do, and you're a user too. So that's where I'm like, don't put it up to the you. You're all user experience designers, whether we suck at it or not. We're all part of that, I think now. everything we do, whether it's the next person to come use that function or that method or whatever, that API endpoint, they're going to be using your design. If you make something and you pass it off to the other developers, then it doesn't work at all. I mean, that's not the sort of person you want to hire. And there's ways to kind of show them whatever it is you're into, or whatever area you're into, or whatever level you're going for, that you've got that. Like, you are a web developer who's capable and competent, and you're gonna grow with us from there. Like, that would be a really great way to think about your interview, or what your portfolio shows. If a stranger looks at this, are they going to say, hey, this looks like a working web developer who's competent, who knows what they're doing, and I believe they would be able to come here and help us do this.
Yeah. And I think there's like important nuance in there where, especially now, no one is getting hired for their knowledge of the technology, right? At least no one's like, oh, get in this junior person. They know several things about React. Fuck yeah, let's go, right?
Yeah.
It's and we have, whether it's reference sources or AI generative sources or whatever it is that you know about syntax, whatever it is you can type out, like there are multiple ways we could get that same thing. What is like that unique value is, how do you connect like purpose and intent to design and implementation, right? And
Yeah.
that's like kind of this, what is still like very much a human factor to do it well, at least. We got to wrap it up. I have one more quick question for you, which is like,
Yeah.
if I'm kind of new to the field and I want to dip my toe in some of these like front end and design and product spaces that you spend a lot of time and energy, what are like 1, 2, or 3 things that I might like read or watch or subscribe to or listen to while I'm driving or what have you?
Shoot, it's big. There's just a lot of things. And I guess I just reframe yourself as a person who helps people solve problems, or reach their goals. But then I do agree that being just a person who can use the tools at hand, whether it's computer science school, whether it's focusing on web development, whether it's focusing on whatever it is, um, to also remember the other people on the team. Like, you could work with, you could join like a local. People are just so over LinkedIn, go network, go to all the meetups. Like, I get it that people are tired of that, but I've met a lot of cool people in my meetups, and don't just meet other coders, meet people, go to the table at the UI group table or the UX table. I mean, they are the ones who have developers they work with, and they're going to be the people who think about you when it's time. Offer to do some projects with people. Try to stay within your skill level. There's a lot of people who are like, I'll just want to work with anyone, and you're like, oh, nobody wants to just enter a huge mess. But like, talk to people about that. Talk to people in like the discords, and just be friendly, because sometimes people just remember that, and they remember, oh, there's that friendly person. Sometimes I'm just like friends with an avatar. I don't even know if they're like where they live, or if they're a boy or a girl, but they're so helpful. Like, they'd be the people I'd reach out to. But I don't know, just draw things out more often. Try to get out of the code a little bit. Just remember that, like, choosing a big font and a little, like, a big piece of text and a little piece of text isn't rocket science either. So just like you might have not known things about programming at first and felt like it was mysterious, like I did, the same can be said for whatever, picking a color. Like, so, don't be afraid to have conversations with people who are in other areas of the space, and kind of see the overlap and see how design systems work, and how you can really help people bring together the tools that get the job done, not just focus on like the code specifically, I guess. I don't know. I bet I have a better answer some other time, but that's what I got this
No, we
time.
don't need the negative self-talk. Your answer was helpful. All right, y'all. Time for some 2 o'clock classes. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you, Derek, for joining us for the hour.
Yeah,
As
thanks
I
for
was
having me.
mentioning earlier, we'll have some follow-up conversation Afterwards, I'll plug Derek's contact information and so forth. As he said, he likes talking to rando people on the internet, so
It's true.
that could be you. And hope everybody has a good rest of your day. Yeah, thanks, Derek, for joining us, and talk to y'all soon.